All right, so my name is Alexis, and I'm also here with Julia and Sarah. And to end Women's History Month, we're going to kick off a Women Abroad event where we're going to share our personal experiences as women abroad. So, my name is Alexis, and I studied abroad in spring 2020 in Prague, Czech Republic. I originally knew I wanted to study abroad in Europe, but I was a first generation college student, so I didn't know how to study abroad or where to get started. So one day I just showed up at the study abroad office and I was like, how do I get started? So I went to a 101 session. And then from there, I knew I wanted to go to Europe, and at first I was looking in Italy. I was a marketing student, and I was also in my junior year, so I kind of had to stay on track for business. So I found some really great school in Italy, but I still was looking around a little bit more. And then one day, when I was getting advice from Nevena, she actually showed me a really great program at the University of New York in Prague. And I actually didn't even know like Prague, Czech Republic was a thing. So I went home and I did a bunch of research and I actually like fell in love with it just by like looking it up. Prague is so beautiful and I was like, oh, I want to go here. The program seemed really great. So that's how I decided on Prague. After that, I did all my post acceptance materials, and then the school was actually my favorite part about my program was I feel like my abroad school did a really good job with orientation. So they even offered like a transport pickup when we went to the airport. I didn't do that because I actually went a day early, just because flights were cheaper on like Tuesdays. So I went a day early, but I just took Uber. It was really simple to get there. But like I said, orientation was my favorite part. So before school even started, we spent a week just getting to know the city. So we had an orientation. It was like all the study abroad students from that school, as well as freshmen. We just basically went to the school and we did like history classes about Czech Republic so we could learn more about the culture, their history. We even learned like a little bit of the language. So when we got around, we were a little bit familiar and we could talk to locals. And it was also a really great way to meet people. I met so many people during my orientation experience. But after that, the school was really great. UNIP I had so many amazing teachers there. They offered like all the classes that I needed, so that's why it was like perfect. Like all my junior year classes were available, so that worked out really good. In Prague, I feel like it was so nice. Like me and my friends would go and we would study in local shops, like do our homework in cafes. My favorite things to do, we went on like hikes. There was a lot of like great hikes there. The city was so beautiful. I had such a good time. I also traveled a little bit while I was abroad. I went to Amsterdam and Germany, but Prague was like my favorite. And I would definitely recommend too to stay a while like in your actual host country because I learned so much more about Czech Republic. I went to like Pilsen and you can go to different cities too within your host country. So I had a really great time. I loved it so much that I decided to come back and become a student outreach coordinator so that I could share my experience. So I would definitely recommend to go abroad. I'm gonna kick it off to Julia to share hers.
All right, my name is Julia, and I studied abroad my junior year, so last year, in Thailand. And so Thailand was not my first choice. I wanted to go to Spain, so similar to Alexis' experience, I at the time I was a biology student. So Spain, the school that I was looking at in Spain didn't offer a lot of classes in my field, and I also needed to stay on track. Um, After talking with people in my major, this one person, he told me that I should look into Thailand because he also struggled with trying to find a location that was one in the price range and two um, fit for our major. And he said Thailand was amazing, and he um, gave me like a whole bunch of advice about Thailand and about his experience. And so when I looked into it, I instantly fell in love and um like I was like so drawn to it. So um the program I went through CIS. It was an amazing program, and similar to like Alexis said, we the orientation process was so nice. I met it was like an easy transition, and like going by yourself, it was like kind of scary. Um, and so I met like a lot of the people in my program through CIS, through the like we had like trips planned through the program, and like I said, the orientation process, we were like not forced to hang out with each other, but it was mandatory. So it was like an easy way of like trying to get to know everyone. And so that was nice. They also had they had arranged someone to pick us up from the airport. So that was pretty neat too. I felt like I wasn't stranded because that was like one of like my biggest worries is when I get to the airport, what am I going to do? How am I going to get to where I need to get to? Especially in a country that's so different from America. Something that was nice is that I was not that far from Bangkok. And so we just took cars up to Bangkok or taxis, and there was lots to do, and even lots to do in the district that I was living in. I also traveled when I was abroad, and it was so easy to travel. And um, there's a person from CIS that lives in Thailand, and so he was very helpful and gave us a bunch of traveling advice. And I mentioned it before, but there were trips set up with our program, so that was really nice too. They had like about 3 or 4 trips planned, and we could go with our program and with David and a bunch of other people, and it was just like really nice because they already had everything set up for us and activities to do. And so yeah, I would recommend Thailand 1,000 times. I fell in love with the place, and I'm actually have plans to go back to Asia sometime in the near future.
All right, hi everyone. So I, like Julia and Alexis, I went abroad my spring of junior year, so spring of 2020. And I had like always known that I'd wanted to study abroad. It was something that was on my radar and something I'd thought about since freshman year. But then as the time came, I was like, okay, it's spring semester, junior year. Like, this is my opportunity to go. Like, this is all that's left. I almost kind of froze because I was like, now where do I begin? Like, how do I know where I know I'm supposed to end up? Or how do I even start my process? And my brother had studied abroad in Italy. And so I felt like I wanted my own experience. Like, I didn't want to go to the same location as he did because I wanted my own experience. So I kind of just started like going through pamphlets and like talking to Nevin at the City Abroad office and asking a bunch of people who had studied abroad, like how they began and what their process was like and what they would recommend. And with some research, I landed upon Spain and I absolutely fell in love. As much as I said, like, I didn't know where I wanted to go, I like kept leaning towards Spain whenever I would like deviate, I'd be like, okay, no, but I really want Spain. And so I ended up deciding studying at the University of Seville. And it was the absolute time of my life. And I like miss it tremendously and like would recommend it to anybody. I, like Julia, I went through an affiliate company. So I went through API, which is Academic Programs International. And it's one of the um, affiliate companies that we work with at the City Abroad office. Sorry, my mind just drew a blank. Um, but yeah, I also loved the orientation process and going alone to this country. Like, I didn't go with anybody from Bridgewater. I was actually the only student um, from Bridgewater using API to go to Seville. So it was kind of nerve wracking, but I kind of loved it in the same sense because I knew I was doing it like for me. So that orientation process was like super helpful and an important step in my journey. I like got to meet my roommates and like get to know them a little bit better. And we started in Madrid. So we worked our way from Madrid and then entered Seville. And we got like tours of the city, tours of the university. We like built our classes together. And that was just super helpful. I also really loved that while I was there, I never felt like alone. Just as we have like offices on campus at Bridgewater, like we had offices at the University of Seville and through API there. So like if I ever needed support or guidance, like I knew that I could go to API office, and like I was horrible at speaking Spanish. So like I knew that I could go there, and like my advisors would help me, like whether it be planning trips or sending mail home, or like figuring out where I need to go in the city or the best way of getting around in the city. Like they were my go-to people. And so I never felt that I was misled or that I was lost. Like I always knew that I had that little safe spot and safe zone. So knowing the support was there despite being in an unfamiliar location was so comforting. Um, yeah, that's like really all. I did a lot of traveling throughout Spain. I went to different cities, and then I also did some extras like Lisbon, Paris, and Morocco, which was fun.
All right. So what we decided that we wanted to do is discuss some topics abroad for some common questions that we always get when we do our one abroad session, 101 abroad sessions. So we're just going to go over a few topics and share some of our personal experiences and some mythbusters with you guys. So financial, we wanted to go over because it's always a big question. So Sarah, you can take it away with the mythbuster.
All right. So for this financial mythbuster, it's that there's no way I can afford to study abroad. And we can definitely like all, I guess, attest to the fact that you can in fact afford to study abroad, because there are so many ways to help support you financially and to also find programs that are within your price range.
I agree. So, from my personal experience, Prague Czech Republic, a big reason I picked that program was because it was the same tuition as BSU. So, it was like $9,000. So, basically the same exact thing as it would be to live at BSU. So, it was really affordable. And then on top of that, there's a ton of scholarships that you can apply to. So, I did the Gilman scholarships and I got $500 for doing that. I also did the study abroad scholarship where I was also able to get $2,500, which really helped me out. It paid for like a good portion of my trip. Also, the financial aid office was so helpful. They'll go over a budgeting tool with you. They'll also tell you like how much you should save for spending money in case you want to do trips or anything else. Um, were you guys' experience similar?
Yeah, mine was very similar. I like how you mentioned the financial aid office because that was so helpful. They did that whole budgeting sheet for me. And a big reason why I also went to Thailand was because it was affordable and it actually ended up being, can't remember off the top of my head, but either cheaper or the same price as BSU. So that was pretty neat that I wasn't coming out of pocket with any more money than I was spending on my university here, which was pretty nice. And the financial aid office was so helpful. They made a whole budgeting sheet. And I like how the number one thing that not only does the financial aid office, but also the study abroad office enforces is that like 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 worrying if you can afford study abroad like shouldn't be like one of your first worries because there's a way that there's tons of help within scholarships and money that you can get. So there's like no reason to worry about if you can't afford it because we like they can make it happen for you.
Yeah, going off of both of your stories too, I also landed on Seville, Spain because of like a budget as well. That was definitely a big factor that kind of narrowed down my search when finding a program. It's like I didn't want to spend like tons more than I was spending at Bridgewater. And so my program ended up being slightly less than a semester at Bridgewater. But then, like, of course, with flights and a couple other fees, it basically balanced out. So, yeah, my program basically was equitable to what I was paying at Bridgewater.
Yeah, and I think that you would be surprised with like the programs because I thought like, oh, study abroad, like, okay, I'm gonna have to save up a ton of money. But when they really break it down for you, I was very surprised to know that I wouldn't be spending, like my parents and everything would be spending the same amount of money that we're spending now at school. So that's pretty nice.
I agree. And on top of all of the scholarships that we mentioned, if you go to the BSU page, we also have our scholarships page. And then also at the end of this, I have attached resources for actually women abroad scholarships. So though that anyone can apply for those as well. So there was like over 20 different scholarships on that page. So it's definitely something to check out at the end. All right, so our next topic is packing.
All right, so the myth buster for packing is that you'll need to pack everything in your suitcase before you go. And this was a hard one for me to wrap my head around because I can't part with my clothes or anything like that. So packing is always a struggle, but you do not need to pack your whole wardrobe with you to go over. Like, it's so hard to believe, but you should pack light.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that I cannot part from my clothes. I have a separation anxiety from my belongings. And so at first I put everything out that I wanted to bring and my mom was helping me pack and she was like, like this won't do. And I was like, okay, you're right. Like what can I take away? And also, I think pack depending on your location. So I know I was going to a very tropical place. I know that I would need bathing suits. So I packed light clothes like that, which was pretty helpful because I didn't need much pants or sweaters or jackets. Also, Thailand, I knew that when traveling, a lot of the places that I would be going to would involve like sightseeing and travel, touristy things, and a lot of that is temples. And so I had to pack conservative clothes, things that would respect their culture. So that's also something that I had to keep in mind. So that might be different than where Alexis or Sarah was going. So definitely keep in mind the things that you'll be doing. I know that I brought like at least a pair of running sneakers or hiking shoes because I knew that I would be doing a lot of that as well. Um, yeah, and yeah,
Yeah, I think definitely research before you go, like the climate and also like the culture, like Julia said, depending for your packing. Like, for example, I knew that Prague had a lot of great hiking spots, and I knew I wanted to do hiking while I was there. And I actually did a lot with my friends. So I did pack hiking boots. Also, it was winter there, so I had a very different experience than Julia. My stuff was all bulky, and I definitely overpacked because I feel like I bought a lot of my clothes when I was there. Just because I feel like all the cultures are different and I feel like they have different styles and wear different things. So also like in Prague, they wear a lot of dark clothes and just like so I did buy a lot of things out there as well. So I definitely pack light is my advice.
yeah,
Yeah, I would so go off of that. Like, I didn't realize everybody tells you to pack light, but when you're like actually doing it, it's so much harder to grapple with because you're like, no, like I might need this. But I remember getting to Spain and I was like walking around the city and I realized that like all the clothes I had like did not fit their style. And I was like, I stick out like a sore thumb over here. Like nobody wears like skinny jeans or like nobody, like everybody's in like dresses and they dress to the nines, like whether they're leaving their house in the morning or anything. Like I brought lounge clothes for like some days that I knew I'd be like hanging around the house. I'm like, God forbid I took out like leggings or like a sweatshirt at all. Like that was not it. So I bought so many clothes while I was abroad that when I came back, like my suitcases were now like, first of all, struggling to close. And I had to pay like an overage price because the wait was over. So go in light because you are going to make up for it once you're there.
yes, I actually had to throw out a lot of things at the airport because I wasn't able to bring it because it was so over. I would have to be paying like $200 to bring my suitcase. So I had to throw out a lot of things. And to avoid that, definitely keep in mind that you're most likely going to go shopping while there because even if you did pack the right clothes for the culture, it's still nice to go shopping. And I know in Thailand, there's a lot of night markets and souvenirs that I wanted to bring back, and just so many extra stuff that I wanted to bring back from Thailand. And so that needed room in my suitcase that was not there.
I agree. It's funny how we all share like that similar experience. So pack light. All right, so our next topic is health and safety.
All right, and the myth buster for this topic is that studying abroad is unsafe. And
With
again, that falls under myth buster because it is a myth.
So just like anywhere else, I felt safe when I was in Prague, but like anywhere else, you should always be cautious of your surroundings. Also, when you're out at night, you should be with a group of people. You shouldn't just be walking the streets alone. Just kind of some things that you would do anywhere in any big city. Another thing for safety is theft. So for Europe, like pickpocketing was like a big thing. If you're on like trams, there's just a lot of public transportation. But same thing when you're in big cities anywhere else, like New York. Just an advice for that is just keep things in your front pockets, or like if you have a little bag, just keep a little bag, keep it in the front of you. And honestly, I never had a problem as long as I did that. I stayed with a group of people. I would suggest don't ever get like too comfortable in the city that you are abroad, because it can be dangerous. It is a city just like anywhere else, but I would definitely feel like it is safe. Just be cautious like you would anywhere else.
Yeah, I agree. Similar to the theft issue that you brought up, Thailand, the city of Bangkok has, before I went, I was told that you're gonna have to be extra careful, but I also felt safe. I was with my friends. I wouldn't go alone or into an area that I knew was like like a little bit, sketchy for tourists to go to. Because keep in mind that you are still like a tourist, so you don't want to go into places that might be a little bit unsafe or like, that you're not familiar with. So yeah, so that was nice, but I would think like like day to day, I did not feel like I was in any danger. So I definitely wouldn't go in with the mindset that you have to be like like I don't know.
You don't
I
have to
feel
be
like
scared, I would say,
yeah,
but
like
be
scared.
cautious just like anywhere
Yeah,
else.
be cautious for sure. Just
Absolutely,
like
you guys nailed it.
I also, Alexis, I don't know if it's on this slide, but I know that in Thailand they have motorbikes, and so that is something that they warned us about is that if you are going to ride one, because they can't tell us not to, that you need to be super careful because while we do have health insurance out there, that was like pretty nice that they set us up with all that, and they gave us a lot of information on if we were to get hurt, where can we go. And the nice thing about my school, I went to Mahidol University in Thailand, is that they actually have a hospital that you can go to on campus. So that was pretty nice. So definitely get familiar with where can you go if you feel sick or if you get hurt or injured, where can you go? And like what number should you call if you're not next to your school or next to the place that you were advised to go to. So definitely like knowing that information is important.
Julia, that just like reminded me of like such a good point too. Like that's such a great one to mention and for people to become aware of, because like when you are doing your post acceptance materials, like your health forms are a requirement, whether you're going through Bridgewater or you're using an affiliate company or an in program, like they're all going to ask you for those things. And actually while I was abroad, like my roommate got pretty sick and we ended up like having to bring her to the hospital. And so we got familiar with like the hospital that was nearby. And then through API, we just like filled out this form and like all of the incurred fees were covered with the health insurance that they provided as students. So like my roommate didn't need to pay anything out of pocket other than like some of the medications that she had to get soon after. But like that was it. So originally we were like, oh my gosh, like this is so expensive for like paying for it. And then we realized it was all covered already by the health insurance that we had through the school. So that was so nice and comforting. So definitely take a peek into it because you'll never know if you need to use it.
Yeah, Sarah, that's a good one to know. Cause like I also was like, okay, like if we do get hurt, like, are we gonna have to pay right then and there? Do we pay after? Is it covered? Definitely knowing like all that information because like for us too, it was covered by our school. So that was pretty nice. But I don't know how it is depending on different locations. So definitely keep that in mind.
Yes, I definitely recommend to know all your health information, know where your local doctors and offices, know your the number to call if you did get sick, and like we said, to definitely stay cautious, but don't be scared to study abroad. All right, so our next topic is transportation.
All right, and the myth for this topic is if you want to travel, you'll have to go with your program. That is incorrect. Oh, and another one is that your transportation is limited abroad. And that is also incorrect. Another myth.
Yes, very incorrect. Actually, I feel like there was more transportation abroad than is even around here. I was so worried about like, oh, like I don't have my car. How am I going to get around? But I feel like no one, like not a lot of people even have cars like in Europe. There was such great public transportation. There was trams, and my program actually gave us a tram card, so we could just literally hop on the tram wherever we needed to go throughout the city. Also, if the trams are open 24 hours, but in Prague actually, but if I ever wanted to go somewhere that was going to take too long on a tram, they also had Uber out there, which I took a few times. That's what I took when I left the airport because I didn't have the public transportation. So I did that. Also, when I traveled to other locations, for instance, Amsterdam, I did plane flights and stuff. So I used an app called Omeo. So what it does is it shows you buses, trains, and airports, and it shows you all three and all the prices. So you can see if you want to do a cheap thing. I know I took a bus to Germany and then I took a flight to Amsterdam. So that's another way to like if you want to travel further to figure out what transportation you want to use and if you're on a budget.
Yeah, like for Thailand, we didn't have Uber. We had something else, but it was the same thing as Uber. So we would call them to pick us up. Taxis we could use. We had a lot of taxis in Thailand. Knowing if it's cheaper to use a taxi or the car is definitely something that to keep in mind, because the taxis will hike up the price depending on your location, and it might be cheaper to do another method. But we also had a lot of public buses that we can go to that there's certain bus stops near our where we were staying, and it would take us to the local mall or even to school. Um, and we had trains too, and especially in the city, we could take the train. As far as traveling to different countries, plane was like the number one method we would do, but I also took my fair share of overnight buses. It definitely wasn't my first choice, but sometimes it was my only choice if the prices that the flight prices were like way out of our budget, and sometimes it was a very drastic difference between the bus price and the plane, and it was just more logical. Like I know when we went to islands, we took um, a bus there or a ferry and stuff like that. So definitely, yeah, I recommend getting an app. I use Travelocity, um, like an app to show you the most affordable prices.
Yeah, and going off of what you both have already added, so Seville is a pretty small city. It's pretty walkable. So a lot of transportation is just like by foot, or there's lots of like bike rentals, like all throughout the city. There's bike racks, and there's also like motor scooters called like limes, or we had those all around. So we used to use those to like get to class or just to get around. But if you didn't want to like walk or you didn't want to take a bike or a scooter, then there was also like we had like a tram that went through the city, and we also have like Uber. Uber was super popular throughout Sevilla, so that was an option that a lot of like our friends would use. And for traveling, definitely I recommend like we used to, I think you have to like turn your laptop or your phone onto like a certain browser, because sometimes if you were like looking for prices and they could like tell that it was in a different location, like the prices would like hike up. Like if it could, I don't even know how to put it into words, but basically like when we were on Google Chrome, we had to turn on like incognito mode, and then our price differentiation would like go down. And that was a travel tip I learned while I was there. So definitely turn on incognito mode while you are looking for flight prices abroad. And then also to tackle the myth that if you want to travel, you'll have to go with your program. That is not necessarily true. Like, thankfully, your programs probably will offer a few excursions included in your program cost. So I know my program offered about like 4 to 5 excursions, some of them being within Spain and two of them being outside of Spain. And they were like weekend trips. And those were just like options. Like we just had to sign up if we were going to go. So if we were, I would just fill out a Google form saying that like I was going to be in attendance, but it was not mandatory. But if I did go, the price was already included in my main tuition cost. But I was like encouraged and welcome to like travel on my own. So like me and my roommates once took like just a weekend trip to Paris together because we wanted to do that, but that wasn't like part of our program. Like that was just on our free time. So very open to however you want to go about traveling.
Yeah, Sarah, I like what you mentioned about the excursions because my program also offered like 4 excursions around that more or less. But I did go on some of them, and some of them were within Thailand. Some of them were right in the city of Bangkok. Some of them were outside of Thailand, or like I know one was in Cambodia, but I didn't want. I had planned a trip to go to Japan with one of my other friends, and so I didn't have to go on the trip, but I could have if I wanted to. But I did go on some of the other ones, so definitely don't feel like you need to go, but it's definitely helpful to go because it is include the price is included, and you get to travel with your program, so you meet new people through that way, which is pretty nice. And it's on the weekend, so I wasn't missing out on school or anything, which was pretty neat.
I agree. I had a similar experience. So I actually, my program offered a bunch of different ones, but I took advantage of two. So actually during that orientation week, we went to Pilsen, Czech Republic, and actually Pilsen like beer is like a really like that's like where they make the beer or whatever. So it was really cool because it was all paid for and we went there. We went to the brewery. They like taught us like everything there. We got to walk around. Also, it's another thing like if you didn't feel safe at first traveling or if you didn't meet too many people yet, definitely go with your program. They provide transportation, activities to do while you're there. Also, it's a great way to meet people, like you guys said. I also did a hiking trip with my program as well, which was a lot of fun because I met a lot of people on that hiking trip. And then actually after that, people I met on the hiking trip, I took an independent trip with to Amsterdam. So it's really cool because you get to meet people. And then that's why I kind of at the end started to do my own trips because I met people from doing trips with the program at first.
Yeah, and you never know, it might be one of your favorite trips you've been on. I know that I missed out on the Cambodia trip, but everybody else that went said that it was their favorite part of studying abroad, of the places that they went to, that they're so glad they went. So that was pretty nice. And then I went to no, sorry, I went to a different part of Thailand, northern Thailand, with my program, and we took a cooking class, and we saw elephants, and it was like super fun, and it was one of my favorite moments studying abroad. So definitely take advantage if you can with that.
Yeah, I feel like the programs do such an amazing job planning those excursions too. Like they're basically your personal travel agents. Like they book all the transportation, where you're going to stay, all the activities. Like they've already been to these spots so many times. So it kind of takes the stress of traveling off because like they have a whole schedule for you booked like while you do go. So that's also a perk of the excursions because you just need to like show up and then everything else is done.
Everything,
Like you don't
yeah.
need to worry about planning what you're going to do or where to go.
Yeah, because sometimes like traveling on the weekend by yourself, while it is so fun, it can be very stressful because trying to get the flight, and then all these other things and where to stay. Sometimes it can be pretty stressful. So it is nice to have like a weekend or two where and have to worry about that, and I can still travel.
Absolutely.
All right. So our next topic is housing accommodations.
So one of the myths for this topic is that all study abroad students stay in on-campus dorms. And that is not necessarily true.
So I get this question actually a few times during Study Abroad 101 of where do you stay? So I know in Prague for my for UNIP they had two different student housing that you could do. So one was actually the one I stayed in was off campus. It was probably 10 minutes by tram, a 20-minute walk from the school. So it was really nice. But the other one was actually 45-minute away walk, and it was like a 20-minute to 30-minute tram ride. That one, although it was longer to go to the school, I know a lot of people liked it because it was in Old Town, which was like a really popular like touristy area in Prague. So just depends on like we had options, so that was kind of cool. So it just depends on where you would like to stay. But definitely I thought that it was gonna be like on campus and it wasn't, but I actually kind of liked it because where I was like around like a bunch of locals. So I got to like actually feel like I was in like the Czech culture. So I really liked it. I met a lot of locals. There was a lot of local markets. Like me and my friend would go to local market on Saturdays. Also like the little cafes, like I said, that are around. I don't know. It made my experience more like authentic, I feel like. So I really like that. Also, for housing accommodations, it was a student building still. So like other schools, like other universities also used it. So it was all students living in my housing. It just wasn't strictly for UNIP. So it was also felt really safe because we had 24-hour security. The doors locked. So I still always felt like really safe, but it was cool because it was right in like the locals part of Prague. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Alexis, similar to you, I had the same experience. It I didn't stay in on-campus dorms, but it was like 10 minutes from campus, so super quick. You could walk if you really wanted to. But they did offer buses that will pick you up right at the buildings, the apartment buildings. But there was two options, and one was a little bit more expensive for a little bit bigger rooms and a nicer pool and whatnot. And the other one was standard, so I picked the standard one. But it wasn't actually offered to just students, but 95% of the people who stay there are students. And it had security, so I felt super safe, and there was a pool that we would hang out at. So that was pretty nice. And it wasn't in, so when I went to Thailand, I was thinking like, oh, we'll be in Bangkok, the city, but it actually wasn't. We stayed in a district that was much more local. Like it was definitely not a lot of tourists stayed there. And we were probably the only people that weren't from Thailand that stayed there, um, which was actually pretty nice. And I'm so happy that we stayed in that district because it felt more home to me. I got to build personal relationships with the local cafes and people who are on the street food and everything like that. So it was like really nice. It was even like a little strip that was literally like within viewing of our apartment building that had a bunch of restaurants and bars and nightlife, which was really nice because we would go there like almost every night and we would eat dinner there and hang out with everyone from different programs. And even like there's even like a lot of locals that go. So I actually have a few friends that live in Thailand now. So it's pretty nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, similar to you both as well. Like my university in Spain, they didn't offer on-campus housing. Like dorms aren't really a thing abroad in Spain. Most people like live in apartments or they just have like different housing situations. So when I went abroad, I had the opportunity or the option to either stay with a host family or I could live in a student residencia. And so a host family is that I would have lived with an actual family in Spain and been immersed and they would have been welcomed into their home. They would provide the three meals. Like basically you just take a room in a family's house. So like some of my friends did that and they had like a host mom and dad, they had like host siblings, which is almost like kind of comforting for them. Like it helped with the transition, but I just wasn't confident with my Spanish skills to like do so. Cause I'm like, oh my gosh, imagine if I like have a host family and like they don't speak any English and I don't speak very well, like very good Spanish. So to avoid that, I did the student residencia and my setup was basically like one big house and there was just a bunch of bedrooms in it. So I lived with like 22 other study abroad students and they were like all basically from my program. Like we were all using API, all going to the University of Seville. And we like each just had like our own rooms. We had meals provided to us from like I had a host mom, but she didn't live in the house. So she would just like come prepare our meals for us. She would like get all of our groceries for us. We had somebody who would like do our laundry. Like the setup was very unique. But that was residencia living in Spain. So it was really fun. I loved it. It was a great way to like meet other people.
Wow, that's cool. Actually, I didn't know that they offered
Yeah,
that
really
for
cool. It's
mine.
so
Yeah.
different than ours, I feel like.
It was so different. Like it was like a dorm situation, but not because it was a house. I
Mhm.
don't know. It was crazy, but it was so fun.
Yeah, I also want to say for like our housing, so the way it worked is it was me and my roommate, and we shared a bedroom, and then we also had like a double bathroom that was also attached to our room. And then on our floor, we had a kitchen. So if we wanted, and we had like a little fridge, like a mini fridge in our room, like kind of like dorms do. So if we wanted to do any cooking or anything, the building actually supplied like pots and pans and stuff like that. But we could go grocery shopping and cook in the floor kitchen. There was also a laundry unit, so we didn't have someone do it. That would have been nice, but we could do it. So that stuff was all there too. So if you were worried about like, because we don't, my program at least, we didn't have like food included, but it was never a problem for me because actually it was really cheap to actually buy groceries and just cook in the kitchen or even going out to eat in Prague. Everything was really cheap, so we actually went out to eat a lot. So it just depends, I guess, where you are.
Something very different from both Sarah and Alexis's was that food wasn't included in my program, but we also didn't have a kitchen or anything. Actually, our student apartments, they kind of similar to like a hotel, if you would say. Like it was just the room with it had like a nice balcony and a shower and a bathroom in it, but then we didn't have an area to cook, so we actually had to eat out every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But the nice thing is that dining in Thailand is super cheap. You can live off $10 a day for all 3 meals, and you can get like one meal is like $2 US. It can even be, it just depends. But street food is super cheap, super good, super delicious too. So I would definitely recommend feeling out what kind of options that you have if you decide to go to Thailand around you. So, but it was like super affordable. So,
All right. So meeting people, this is our last topic. So if you want to hit off the Mythbuster.
All right, so this very last Mythbuster is that it's hard to make friends abroad. And I don't mind jumping in for that one, but that it's not hard to make friends abroad. Everybody is in the same exact position as you. Like they're all in an unfamiliar location. You're all starting off a new journey. You're all wanting to make friends. And I think that's the important thing to remember. Like everybody is going there for a new experience and like they want to meet new people. Like you decide to study abroad for very similar reasons. You'll come to learn that the people that you're around, you're going to have a lot in common with. You're typically like pretty adventurous people, like you want to explore new cultures, like you want to step out of your comfort zone. So I didn't find it hard. Like as soon as we got there, like you would just strike up conversation. I was meeting friends like already starting at Logan Airport, like right before we left. I like found people that were like flying to the same city and like starting the same program. And you kind of always just like bond over like even if you're getting a little homesick. Like once I met my very best friend because she was getting homesick and she like lived across the hall from me and she like came in crying. And so like you bond over things like that, like bond over emotions. And it just, you'll like come to realize how quick all things happen.
I agree. I feel like the orientation, like I said in the beginning, I felt everyone was in the exact same boat. Like everyone was like, "Oh, what's your Snapchat? Oh, we should all get together after this and go out to eat." Everyone is doing the same thing. Everyone's going into this like with open minds. Everyone wants to meet people, so you're definitely not alone. I feel like it was actually really easy to meet people because everyone wanted to make friends. So it was really nice. Also, like I said, living in that student apartment, I got to meet people in my program as well as other people in other universities, which was cool. So I got to even meet people who were in going to UNIP full time, and it was actually an international school. So I got to meet people from like all over the world there. And I got to get advice from them on like good places to eat. And they would also like, they were actually very nice and knew didn't know what to do. And they actually brought us along to different events and different cool things to do. So that was also really nice as well.
yeah, going abroad with that was like my number one worry. Although I did go with my roommate, but I still wanted to make my own, like not my own friends, but like I still wanted to meet new people and and everything. So I was like, what if like I have no friends there or like, but everyone's in the same boat as you. So they want to meet new people just as much as you do too. And I know there was like a group chat made before when I was still in Bridgewater applying, which was pretty nice. So, we were always talking through that. And like you said, Alexis, like I had people on Snapchat and everything. So that was pretty nice that we got to talk before we even landed in Thailand. So it made it very easy. And the first couple of days, everyone was texting like, "Oh, like come down here," or like we're going here if anyone wants to come. So it was like super welcoming, and everyone, or it's like everyone is probably thinking the same thing. So there's no need to worry.
I agree. I also would recommend to get involved. So like during our orientation, they gave us they actually showed us like different like sports that we could do. So it was just for actually 4 people that were there for a semester as at a time. It was for like study abroad students. And you would just compete with like other local schools. So that was something cool that you could do too. I know a couple of my friends end up doing that. I'm not athletic, so I didn't end up doing it, but it was something cool to get involved with. And like I said, trips too. I met a lot of my friends on like those first couple of trips that I made, as well as my roommate became like my best friend because like the first night we are like, oh, where do we eat? We don't have any food. What do we do? So she went through like the exact same. I feel like we're going through the exact same thing at the same time. Um, so it was nice also to have a roommate because I feel like everything you said, like getting homesick, and we just went through all the emotions together and we did everything together. So we became really good friends and we're still friends till this day. We still talk. So
I almost feel like it's easier to make friends abroad. I don't know if you guys felt the same way because you're like experiencing so many new emotions and like there's so much new going on that it's kind of like an instant bond with people that are around you. So I would not worry about that. This was my honestly biggest concern because I was like, I'm going totally alone. Like, what if I meet nobody? And I promise that won't happen to you.
Yeah, Alexis, I like what you said about the roommate thing because my roommate actually we became in the same friend group too, so which was pretty nice. We, you know, became super close because we were in similar situations. And so we made like the same friends and it actually became very easy to transition to like meeting new people and everything. So definitely get to know. Oh, definitely getting out of your comfort zone too because there was times where I had to go up to people and be like, "Oh, hi, like my name is Julia, like I'm from here, like where are you from?" So definitely don't be afraid to like introduce yourself first and everything because they're probably just as scared as you are.
I agree. All right. That brings us to the questions and answers. So does anyone have any questions?
So I actually made a list of questions that I
Oh,
feel like people could have gotten from this. So it's like if anyone's rewatching it, they'll be like, all right, like yeah, I thought about that too. So
that's
I have
awesome.
a list if you guys wanna
Yes,
kind
please.
of go
Thank
through
you.
this. Sure. So I said, how would you rate the school slash workload in comparison to Bridgewater? Like, was it way easier or was it like, oh, it's kind of the same, or like this was so much tougher?
That's a good one. So I'll go first. So for my school, I wouldn't say it was tougher. I might say it was easier, but it was really different. So the way it was is, I don't know. For me, for Bridgewater, I feel like we have a lot of like throughout like schoolwork throughout the whole semester. And the way it was at Prague was they kind of like midterms and exams were really big, I guess. Like midterms were really big, and like the end, I didn't have a lot of like regular work to do throughout the semester. But they are also really big on presentations. So I did have a lot of presentations, which I have in Bridgewater now, but I feel like every class I had presentations, which I actually really liked because it got me more comfortable with my classmates, and I actually met a lot of people through presentations because there was a lot of group presentations. So that was my personal experience with that.
Yeah, I feel like it went through like waves, like midterms and like finals was like super stressful and busy, but like when it was like that middle like area, it wasn't like too bad. I would say it's either the same or less for me.
Yeah, and I guess it definitely depends on like what program you're going into or what types of classes you're also going to be planning to take abroad. I knew that when I was going abroad, I was just like saving my core classes. So I was taking like arts and some just like freebies. So for me personally, like my semester was kind of a relaxing one, which is like what I was looking for. Like I wanted to really learn like by being immersed in the culture. So I wanted to have my workload be a little bit less. So my workload was definitely less, but like Alexis said, grades were definitely like midterm finals. So you would have only like 2 big exams to base a grade off of. And then in other classes, it was lots of presentations. So it totally depends on what you're studying and like what kind of classes you are going to be taking. But personally, it was less.
That's kind of what I figured because you guys all said you did like extra trips, and from what I gained, you guys did a lot of extra trips, even no matter how short your time was. So I was like, clearly it can't be that bad because you had all that time to go away. When you guys did do extra travel, where did you stay? Like, was it hard to find hotels? Was like Airbnb the big thing from all different places, or was it like hotels?
Yeah, so I actually stayed in Airbnbs both times I went for overnight trips. So in Amsterdam, I actually did a shared Airbnb for the first time, so that was interesting. So it was 2 floors, and then like the upstairs was like a loft, so it was separate. You had your own bathroom and stuff, but the common area was like I don't know, it was really popular there in Amsterdam, I guess, to have like shared Airbnbs, but it was cool. Like we never had any problems. And then also in Germany, oh no, actually, I didn't stay on Airbnb in Germany. I stayed in a hostel actually. So that was actually really cool. I always thought like I was always didn't really know how I felt about staying in a hostel, but this one was like really cool. It was kind of like a hotel almost. So like we had like I went with there was 6 of us, and so we all shared a room with like 3 bunk beds, and then also had an attached bathroom. But it was kind of like a hotel because like we had like a key to our room, and like there was also downstairs like a restaurant, a cafe, and like seating areas. So it was kind of cool because like it was our own room, but we like all 6 of us shared it together. So that was another like I feel like Airbnb and like hostels were like cheaper for me anyways where I went.
Yeah, I stayed in a lot. So I went like almost every weekend to like another location, and I stayed in a lot of hostels. Hostels was definitely the main, it was like the only thing I stayed in was hostels. I don't even think I stayed in anything else. I think one time I stayed in like this Airbnb hotel like thing, but that was like one of the last trips, and that was because my whole program, like we decided to plan something, even like with people from other programs. But hostels are definitely the number one um, place like that I've stayed in. And it's also like way cheaper too to stay in a hostel. And it was pretty nice because I went with a good amount of people. So like even if it's like 4 people, their rooms fit up to like sometimes like 4 people. So like I only stayed with in a room with the people that I was traveling with, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, and I basically only stayed in Airbnbs while I did like independent travel at least. Like when I went through my program, we like stayed in hotels because like that's what they provided. But when I did like traveling with friends, we would just like rent out Airbnbs because it just so happened like price wise to work out almost best that way for us to get like an apartment or a loft or things like that than a hostel. So in my situation, that's what worked best.
Okay. Also, I know you guys all touched upon like the language thing, but so you guys all studied abroad in countries where English was not the predominant language. Was there any way you guys prepared? Like, did you ever feel super lost? I know, Sarah, I believe you kind of touched upon it because your Spanish was not good, but like, did you guys all try and learn a little bit, or was it like you went in, I had no idea, and you made it out okay?
Yeah, so I tried to learn. I not like before I went, but like when I was there, like the first couple of days, we learned some phrases like hi, hello, thank you, like different phrases during kind of like our orientation, like 2 day orientation thing. Um, they taught us like phrases that like we should know, which was kind of nice. And I took like a Thai course, something in the culture, and like I had Thai friends, so like that was pretty nice that they would help us out with that. But definitely the first few weeks was hard, um, especially at like restaurants. And I know I mentioned that I wasn't staying in a super touristy area. It was all local restaurants. The menus weren't a lot of English on them, so we would have to point to things or use like a translating like system or but um yeah, I would definitely recommend like learning at least like mannerisms in that language?
Sure. I was gonna say for me, I did look, so like I did phrases and stuff before I went there and like I learned like hello, goodbye, thank you, like different stuff like that. And then on during my orientation for we did a week-long period of actually just learning the language. And actually I forgot a lot of it now because I haven't used it in a while, but we learned a lot. Like we learned our numbers to like 100. We learned how to say prices, we learned our like ABCs, we learned how to write a little bit. We learned like all like phrases. We learned how to ask for things. So that was actually really helpful that they did that because I actually knew quite a bit. And like Jalea said, where I was very local. So all the restaurants and cafes around there didn't really speak English, which I feel like you shouldn't go into it kind of like expecting them to either because you're going to a foreign place. But so at first, when I didn't have the course, I wasn't that good. So that was a little difficult. But once you go into the city, like where UNIP was, like in the main area, I feel like a lot of people did know English there. But also when you go out, I would download Google Translate because when you go to grocery stores, you can like scan the things because you might see like the first day I needed shampoo and conditioner and I couldn't tell which one was shampoo and which one was conditioner. So if you use the Google Translate, you can scan it and it brings the words, the writing into English. So I definitely recommend to do that when you're grocery shopping because things can look very different and you can get really confused easily.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I love the Google Translate app. I think it's so good, but it's also so important to like learn the like at least some try. Like you don't need to be fluent, but like at least try to learn part of the language of the culture that you're going to. I downloaded like Duolingo. I got a Spanish dictionary. Like I was so motivated to want to learn it. Thankfully, like I grew up in a Portuguese family. And so Portuguese and Spanish are like pretty similar. So understanding the language was pretty easy to me, actually. Like I could understand most of like what people were trying to say. It was just like coming up with a response on my own was where I found a challenge, because like the verb tenses were different. But that's where I definitely just relied on like going through an app for like common phrases. And also the school that I was at offered like conversation partners. And I did that, like a bunch of my friends and I like signed up to have them. And so it was a student that's like from Spain, goes to the University of Sevilla like as a full-time student, but is fluent in English and fluent in Spanish. So they helped us as like English speakers and as American students to like learn the language. So me and my conversation partner would meet like once a week at a cafe and she would just like ask me whatever I wanted to learn and we'd like go over it. Or I would like write down things that I'd been hearing. And I'm like, I don't know what this means. And so she would help me with that. Or we would just like take a walk through the city and she would kind of like help me in my interactions. So that was a really cool option that the school provided. And it honestly really helped because I feel like the most learning I had was when I was just immersed in it. Like I learned more by just like being there and using the language on my own. You're going to have mess ups. Like I definitely said things that were like wrong. But it's just part of the learning process.
I think that's all I had for questions because I feel like you guys covered a lot. So thank you for answering those.
Those are such good questions. Thanks for asking.
Thank
If you
you.
don't mind me jumping in, I do have a question. So following the theme of the event, did either of you or anybody, have you done any research prior to studying abroad in terms of like looking at topics of women abroad, like general information, maybe some research on the country and how they treat women, anything like that? Or if you're traveling alone, any tips, advice that you see online for women traveling to the country that you went to?
Yeah, so actually, you'll see it in the next slide, but I use diversity abroad because we actually have a link on our study abroad page to it. So on diversity abroad, they had a women's section and it told you basically to Google how women are treated abroad. It had some safety tips. It said to Google like if feminine products were available abroad. Just different things like that. I would definitely check that out and the link will be in the next slide because it helped me a lot kind of gain a idea of how the culture is going to be like before I got there. So that was really helpful for me.
Yeah, Alexis, something that I was told like multiple times before I went to Thailand was that feminine products were like not going to be available to you, and like you should pack like what you can get, in America, you should pack like extra for that. So something that I did before I went was I packed a bunch of feminine products, like half of one of my whole like one luggage, half of it was toiletries, just toiletries. So it had everything from like soap to lotion to tampons to pads to anything like that. Um, but something that I learned out there was that it's not that you don't have access to it. It might not be at my local 7-Eleven or such, but the price will be a little bit higher just because that's just not what their primary use there is, which is fine. But they still offer it. I was under the impression that I was not going to be able to find it anywhere, and it would be super hard. So I have to pack it myself, but it's not necessarily true. That I learned is that you do have access to it. It just might be a little bit more expensive than you thought.
Yeah, I hadn't like really done much. I probably should have, but I didn't really do much research beforehand as to like what the situation was like with women being abroad in Spain and specifically in Sevilla. Um, it was definitely something that I kind of just like learned as I went, but I never felt that I was in a situation where I felt like unrepresented or misrepresented, or that like I always felt like very welcomed. I felt that anything I needed I had access to, anything that I wanted to do I was able to do. Like I felt very at ease and comfortable there. But I didn't use any of that. But had I known that those resources were available, like I didn't even know that websites like you were talking about, Alexis, were even like out there. So that's very good to know.
Yeah, Alexis, thank you for mentioning that because I had no idea that was there.
Yeah, so you'll see that in the next link. But I would definitely recommend to look up the culture's views towards women, because also like where I was, it was very young and liberal. So I feel like there was never any, I don't know, like there was no dress code, there was no, I don't know, it was fine there. But I know like Julia said, like in Thailand too, like just like looking up to like how like religion is there, and like how they dress more conservatively when you're going in temples and stuff, just being respectful to the culture. So that's definitely something to research.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else have any questions?
I think I just have one last one for you guys. Did you feel like you needed to, um, like, I'll make this as vague as possible, I guess, but did you feel like you needed to purchase anything to like keep yourself safe while you were abroad? Like, I know sometimes people buy like hidden wallets and to keep like their passport under their clothes or something like that. Did any of you feel like you had to purchase anything to help you feel safer while you were abroad?
Okay, so I'll go first because I actually did purchase. It wasn't for while I was abroad per se, but it was while I was in the airport. So I purchased one of those wallets that had like they blocked you from getting credit card information, because I guess you can like scan I don't know, you can like scan the wallet and somehow get people's credit card information. I didn't even know this until I researched stuff abroad, but so I got one of those wallets, and then my friend also got one of the wallets that I was going with. So we both had those, which was, I don't know if there was a problem because I had the wallet, but nothing ever happened to me personally. But I didn't use it while I was out and about because I didn't really bring anything but my ID and like a little bit of cash when I went out because I didn't want to carry all of that stuff. But I did use the wallet while I was in the airports.
Yeah, while there, I feel like I didn't need to get anything to like keep me safe. Like while I was in Spain, I felt so safe at all times. But definitely in preparation, like before going there, I bought those little like RFID card holders. So I would put like my credit cards in, just so again, like Alexis was saying, like nothing could get swiped or scanned. And I know that like some of my friends, they also got, there's like these like bags, like crossbodies or wallets that they have like little locks on them. So it's to prevent like anybody from unzipping a backpack. Or there's also like they're slip proof. So like pickpocket or couldn't like split it. So there's a bunch of stuff out there like available, and I know a lot of my friends have gotten them, and I got a few things, but once I was there, I didn't feel like I needed to, or I didn't feel like I needed to purchase anything while I was there for additional safety.
Yeah, I think the only thing I purchased was, so I did mention that I stayed in a lot of hostels, so I purchased a little lock that, because the hostels do provide like a space for you to put like your stuff in, like, so I would put like my bag in there, or like my suitcase or something in there, and I would just lock it with the lock that I had, to prevent anyone getting into it. Um, but yeah, as far as, I would definitely like recommend purchasing, a wallet or something, because it doesn't hurt to be, safe and take extra precautions. But as far as feeling unsafe, I didn't, honestly, I really didn't. Um, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So if that's it for questions, I'm going to move on to resources. So the first link over here is actually the Diversity Abroad for Women Going Abroad that I mentioned. So definitely check out that link because it has so much useful information. Also, the next one is the travel state. So government one. So this is actually one for math. So it just has, again, it has some tips and stuff for women abroad, and also goes over different laws. So you can click on different links actually to see different laws in each country, because actually there are like some laws in other countries like pertaining just to women as well, depending on where you go. So definitely check that out when you're researching where you want to go. Then the next one is just a blog. So basically it's a transitions abroad. So it's kind of like what we did, but in writing. It just talks about different women's experiences abroad. So you get to see some more personal experiences and different safety tips from them as well. And then the last one, definitely check out. This is the one for Women Abroad Scholarships. It has like 20 plus different scholarships for women going abroad. So I would definitely check out that resource as well. All right. Any last questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I'm so glad you guys came with questions and stuff, because we didn't want to sit here and talk to ourselves. But I feel like that ending was really great because we got to get a lot more information out of it. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Alexis.
you so
Thank you,
much.
Sarah.
Yes, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Yes. Thank you guys for all supporting. I'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Awesome. Alexis, if you want to stop recording.
I'm trying to figure out how to do that right now.